As the blogs was very simple, the get all questionable comments, it's a little bit more complex and it does a lot more. So what you'll see here is it's going to do some very simple matching. So any entry that is a comment that the author's name is anonymous, that's one that we want to pay attention to. Any entry that matches, and there's some new XPath 2 functionality as compared to XPath 1 that's using regular expressions that's in the function library. But the other interesting thing here is it's matching to a variable, case insensitive, my vulgar words. My vulgar words, you'll remember I registered the namespace for my, and I declared a variable called vulgar words. And that just says that somewhere external to this XPath, there's going to be some data that comes in, happens to be from my Java program, that is going to define that data that it's looking for. So it's going to see if anything matches that data. I'll show you how that data is bound in a second. And then finally, it demonstrates integrating existing Java logic. So now you'll see my legacy content analysis of any comments text. So we'll go to both the binding of my local data as well as my local function in a second. Finally, implementing the logic for the date time processing for the search window. Remember, it was only searching for 12 months or whatever you put into that form. You can see that it's looking if the current date minus how many months ago is when the comment was published. And this is new as well in XPath 2.0, that we can deal with dates as dates. In XPath 1.0, they were just strings, and you had to have custom proprietary extension functions to be able to handle the date content. So then after all that, after we find all three of these kind of things, order them together, we look for the things that are only within that date window range. Now you can see that we pull back the ID of the comment, we pull back when it was published, we pull back what the text was, and we pull back what the author's name was, and the link for the actual comment, so we could go and delete it if we liked. And that's what's being returned when you click search. You can see all those data fields are actually within what comes back on the web page. So I mentioned that we had this custom data and we had this custom function. The fact is, you're integrating this XML processing logic within a Java programming model, and in Java you have lots of data, you have lots of functions that are going to exist, and you need to link into your XML processing. So how do you do that? So let's look at vulgar words first. So if I go and look at get all comments, you can see it looks very similar. I go get the data off of Blogger, create a factory, create the input source. Now you can see I create a dynamic context, which is something that is different than a static context, which are things that are known at compile time of the executable. And these are things that differ each time you run the executable. So you can see that I bind into that dynamic context the vulgar words queue name. That's what I told it was going to exist, but I bind in an actual Java value. If I go to the declaration of that, you can see that statically within another class, I've got a string that is vulgar words, and I build it up out of some custom words that aren't quite vulgar but show the point. And what that means is, as this is executing the XPath that we showed up here, when it goes to do this match, it's going to match the content of what's in that Java variable. So it's an easy way of passing Java data into the XPath. Similarly, the legacy content analysis, let's show how that works. So you remember that I bound in a function definition for legacy content analysis. Now, in the dynamic context, I actually bind a function, legacy content analysis, and I bind it to in the extension functions class, which this could be any class. You could bind this to existing J2SE methods or code that you've written. I look for a method called legacy content analysis. So as you can see in extension functions.java, I've got a method called legacy content analysis. It takes a string, returns a boolean. It's very, very simple. It's just searching for the content and seeing if a word keyword is in it. Obviously, this could be implemented in the XML processing languages themselves, but it's an example to prove the point of how you could integrate existing Java logic. The case where you had lots of Java logic that you just need to integrate and you weren't going to code over again from scratch, that would be the case where you would use this. Or if there were resources that you couldn't get to from the XML programming model and you could only get from within your J2E application or Java environment, you would bridge those existing functions in this manner. So if I go back, you can see that I bind that function in, and much like the previous case where I was looking for all the blogs, now I'm looking for all the comments. I execute it against that dynamic context that has the Java data and Java extension functions, and while it's executing the XPath, not only is my data coming in from the Java model, each time it's evaluating this part of the path, it's actually calling my Java function to decide whether it hits a legacy content analysis match or not. And we take the data that's returned out of all that, and we look through the data, and we walk through the sequence, and we populate comment beans. And those comment beans get returned out of this function. So going back out to the containing servlet, you can see that after it comes back, it sets the list of blog beans or the list of comment beans back into the servlet context and redirects to a JSP. In the first case, all blogs. In the second case, all comments. But that data came from a search of the XML data off of the Blogger APIs. And you can see a fairly simple JSP at that point that displays all the blogs. It just gets the list of blog beans, writes out a simple table that has a form in it that will then post to the get all comments and will post the blog ID and the blog title. So that's the basic example of the end-to-end XPath. Hopefully it explained that there are new functions within XPath that are being leveraged here. It also explained that you can integrate existing Java data and existing Java functions into your XML processing, and showed you how you would use this in an end-to-end example. Thank you.